When we begin to model in AutoCAD, what I want to note is that you can actually create a model in 3D in two different ways. So one is that you can actually start from scratch, and the other is using existing drawings. And by existing drawings, what I mean is that you can actually XREF a drawing into AutoCAD, and you can use some of the tools in order to extrude some of the solids, some of the walls that are there, or some of the other objects that are there. Or what you can do is you can use a copy of your drawing. You know, say I'm working on a furniture piece and I just do a save as, and I create a drawing or a model file from that. The one thing to look out for is that if you are doing it that way, okay, which might be the easiest way to do it, just make sure that you're always saving a copy, okay, because what happens is that some of the tools, if you work with them in AutoCAD, they will get rid of some of the drawing information underneath. So for example, if I'm using the extrude tool and I'm using a polyline, okay, that I had in my drawing, and I extrude it to a 3D object, it's going to lose the polyline, because basically it's taking that polyline and it's making it into a 3D object. Okay, so you don't get that polyline back. Now it's part of the 3D object, and you start to lose information. So I always say, you know, save a copy and work with a copy of the file. If you want to work with an XREF, again, as I said, you can do that too. And a lot of people advocate using polylines, okay, and using closed objects in order to start off with 2D drafting, in order to make the 3D modeling process easier. Okay. Again, it's up to you. You'll get the feel for it. You'll get to know how the tools work, and you'll get, you know, you'll definitely familiarize yourself with using 3D. As you start to work with your 3D models. Now, layering in 3D is also a tough thing to try to communicate to people, because what happens is it's not a plan, okay? It's not an elevation, it's not a section, and really when you start to print it, it doesn't really matter about line weights. It mostly matters about objects. So what I always say is treat it like you would building a physical model, okay? I think that's the best way to approach modeling in 3D, or at least that was the way that always helped me. And when you start to think about the layers, think about the, you know, elements that you're using. So, you know, maybe you want all the walls to be on a you know, the same layer, or if you're working with a specific part of it, maybe you want all the existing walls, you know, that are to remain on one layer, but you want certain walls to be able to be editable, okay, or to be deleted, or to be changed as the design changes. So maybe those you put on a different layer. Again, this is something that you learn when you start to use it more and more, because it's one of those things that, you know, you can either have too many or too few, and that really just comes with experience, okay? So to use the tools, what I want to do to begin with is I want to go through some of these modeling tools, and you'll see that AutoCAD has the presets for these modeling tools. So if I click on box, you know, and again, if I mouse over it, you'll see that AutoCAD gives some really great instructions for how to use it. But you'll notice that when we start to work with these tools, they all start to work the same. So for example, if I use the box, okay, and I click on this to be my current command, I'm going to click on one corner, I'm going to click on another, and I'm going to click a third time in order to give it a height. Okay, so that's how AutoCAD works, is that it looks for, you know, a width, it looks for a depth, and it looks for a height. Same thing, if I scroll down and use a cylinder, okay, it's going to start from the center, I'm going to work myself way out, and I'm going to extrude it up. Okay, extruding it up is always the last part of it. They have a cone, so if you have a cone, you'll click the radius, okay, and the height. Sphere, okay, spheres are a little bit tricky because they always start right in the middle. So you'll notice that half of it are under the z-plane, some, or the, you know, are in the negative z-axis, half of it's in the positive z-axis. So again, specifying the center point, clicking, and obviously with the sphere, you get the center height along with the radius. So again, if I hold down Shift and I hold down my scroll button and I orbit, you'll see that with that grid, okay, you'll see that it goes right through that sphere, showing that the sphere is actually, you know, half above this, in the positive z-axis, and then half in the negative z-axis. So there's a sphere, there's a pyramid, okay, and there's a wedge, and there's a torus. Okay, and again, the torus is half positive z-axis, half negative z-axis. These are what you'll find are referred to as the standard primitives, which you'll find in 3D Max and other programs. You know, they all have the same standards as AutoCAD does. So that's, you know, one of the reasons for introducing 3D, you know, to AutoCAD users is to start to get them used to working with, you know, 3D programs, which is the next step in the CAD series. So basically with these guys, I just started making them arbitrary. Okay, I'm going to just erase them, and I'm going to show you that you can actually make them a lot more specific. So for example, if I go to the box again, and I click and specify the first corner, okay, I can, if I click on my down arrow key, or if I click on L, okay, for underneath my sub options, okay, I can specify the length, which could be, let's say, 2 feet. Okay, now it's going to ask me to specify the width, and the reason why it's at an angle is because my mouse was at an angle. I can say I need the width to be 5 feet, and now I need the height to be 10 feet. Okay, so you can do them arbitrarily as I did at first. Okay, or what you can do is you can enter the specific dimensions in order to make it a lot more accurate. So again, if I have my sphere, I'm going to click on the center point, and you'll see that my command is either waiting for me to click or to specify the radius, and I can say 6 feet for the radius, and it'll set that at that. As I said before, we can also create our 3D models using existing drawings or existing objects, and these next tools are going to be helpful in doing that. So what happens is that traditionally a lot of people, what they do is they advocate for people, for students, for, you know, whoever's drafting in AutoCAD, to always use polylines. Okay, reason being is that it makes three-dimensional extrusion a lot easier. So if I take a polyline, okay, and I can work with my two-dimensional tools in three-dimensional AutoCAD, that's fine. It's, you know, again, it's not three-dimensional AutoCAD, it's just introducing this z-axis into our model space that we've been using. What I can do is I can draw on it like any other drawing that we've been working with so far. So I'm going to specify a start point, and let's say I'm going to draw a building footprint. I'm going to turn on my ortho, and my building footprint is going to be 200 feet by 40 feet by 200, and, oops, not 200 inches, 200 feet, and C for close. Okay, so what I have is I have a closed polyline. Okay, and what we can do is we can use the extrude tool in order to define it. So I'm going to click on extrude, I'm going to click on that closed polyline object, and I'm going to extrude it up, let's say 100 feet. Okay, so these extrude tools, what they do is they take a closed polyline, okay, or a closed object, and they extrude it. Okay, I can do the same thing for, let's say, a circle, and you'll see that your draw tools are actually located in your 3D modeling ribbon so that they are easily accessible for me. Okay, so I drew a circle, and I can extrude that, let's say 20 feet, and I can also take a polyline. Let's turn my ortho off, and I can create custom shapes. Just hitting C to close it, and then extrude it that to up as well, 300 feet. Okay, so what I find is that a lot of times for site models, AutoCAD tends to be very helpful for that, because it allows us to be able to take these polylines, these closed polylines, and these closed objects, and to extrude them to different heights. Additionally, there's also this press pull tool, which does the same thing, but what it does is it allows us to extrude regions without having a closed polyline. So for this example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a series of lines. Okay, and I'm going to use the press pull command, okay, which is located next to the extrude, and what it does is it recognizes this region that's in between, you know, and inside all these overlapping lines, and once it does, it creates this, you know, dashed outline, and then I can click into that space and I can extrude it up. Okay, this actually I think is one of the best tools that AutoCAD has, you know, especially in 3D. I think it makes it so much easier. The only thing is when it starts to get more complicated, then that's when you're going to start to have, you know, more issues trying to work with that. So again, what it's doing is it's just extruding a portion or portions, okay, that is defined by these overlapping boundaries. Okay, and then one other tool before we move on is that I want to show you the polysolid. And the polysolid is a really great tool in that it basically creates walls for us, okay? And not walls like smart walls that BIM might have, but walls as solids, solid objects in 3D. So if I click on this, what it's going to ask me to do is it's going to specify a start point. But what I want to do before we get into this is I want to specify the parameters of my wall. So I'm going to click on my down arrow key, or you can see that you can follow the tools down here too if there's sub options. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on height first. If I know that all of my heights are going to be, let's say, 8 feet tall, I can type in 8 feet. And then I want to specify my width. Okay, and so I know if all of my walls are going to be 6 inches or 5 inches, let's say 5, I can type that in. And then I can also figure out where it's going to be justified. So I can either justify it on the center, I can justify it on the left side or the right side. It's up to you. The default, as you see down here, is actually center, but it does give us these options if we click on justify, left, center, or right. So if we want to keep it on center, we can just click on that or hit enter, and I'm going to specify my start point. And basically what I can do is if I, you know, for this example, unless you want angled walls, I'm going to turn on my ortho, so I can say, well, I have a wall going, you know, this direction in 10 feet. I'm going to say 3 feet in this direction, let's say 30 feet in that direction, 40 feet in that direction, not 40 inches, 40, I guess it took to 40 inches, and then you could hit enter, and it basically laid these walls down as one singular object, but you could actually work with it like you do the line tool or the polyline tool. Now the one thing that I wanted to warn about, okay, is if I have a line, okay, technically yes, I can click on it and I can extrude it, okay, but this is not 3D modeling, okay, this is a very bad way of 3D modeling, because if I do that, what it does is it doesn't really treat a line as an extruded solid, and that's what we want with every 3D program that we work with. When we extrude planes like this, and this is actually how SketchUp works, is that we don't really have a thickness to our model, okay, and you'll see down the road that it'll start to affect it. Okay, especially when we start to create sections. With a solid, it'll tell us where that section cut is. If it's just a plane, it won't, because basically it'll show it as one line. And so just make sure that you're not extruding your objects like this. Okay, you're not extruding your lines like that. Okay, instead you're actually making shapes and forms and real 3D solids out of these tools that we've been working with.